Recording in progress.
Is Doug coming?
No, he's on vacation. He's got grandkids. Okay, it's 7:30 and I'll call the Public Works meeting to order for Tuesday, August 25, 2026. First item on the is to approve the agenda. Are there any corrections or changes to the agenda? Is there a motion? Motion. Motion by Fleming. Second by Brown. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, agenda passes. Approval of minutes dated July 28, 2026, highway. Are there any corrections? Not, is there a motion?
I so move.
Moved by Brown,
Second.
second by Fleming.
We'll alternate.
Citizen motion approved. Citizens participation, communication and announcements. Is there anyone on Zoom that wants to speak? Anyone on Zoom? Anyone in the audience?
Good morning.
Good morning. See none. Wayne, do you have something?
I got one brief thing, just wanted to make the committee aware. Yesterday I had 2 open meetings for town reps to come in, and I'm looking at making an adjustment to the routine rate for 2027. Currently, we charge $1,700 a mile for the routine maintenance work. And I had a couple different options going at 1,900 or 2,000. Does not affect how much they spend in total because they do so many projects above and beyond all of that. What it does is it just raises that floor, so if something were to happen, we kind of protect ourselves. So, had meetings with them, we had turnout. I think we had 8 or 10 people yesterday representing 5 or 6 towns. We had another one last night, at 6 o'clock. I tried to split it so that anybody could get there, that wanted to, but it was just kind of meetings for the towns, so. Just want to let you know that it's been in the works.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Review, discussion and possible action. A, discussion and possible action, issue paper MP 2026-1 motor pool 25 replacement. You want to explain that?
Yeah, nope, I can give a little background on this
Yeah.
one. So this is a scheduled budgeted replacement for the motor pool fleet. It's for the Human Services Department over at the Youth Services Center. Currently, they have a 2016 Ford Transit van It's just much bigger than what they really have been needing it for, and with it being scheduled for replacement, they're looking to kind of downsize. And go with the Kia Carnival van, which still fit their needs, but be at a lower purchase price and a lower maintenance price. For what they're using it for. There is budget funds available, 135,000 was budgeted 2026 for motor pool vehicle purchases. And this purchase plus to the next issue paper are the first two, so there's funds.
Okay.
available.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Fleming,
Second.
second by Brown. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay. B, discussion possible action, MP 2026-2, motor pool 47 replace.
All right, this is another replacement. This one actually was scheduled to reach its mileage in November, but we've been having some maintenance issues with this 2019 Impala. It has just under 100,000 miles. And we've had it at Kaiser dealership. It's having some acceleration issues, some brake issues, and looking at the cost to start to diagnose and repair this vehicle to try to get it a couple more months just wasn't the cost to benefit analysis. So we're looking to actually get this purchase done here in September, which is a couple months early, but avoid putting in that repair cost if it's not needed. So looking to replace that with the Chevrolet Equinox. That would fit the needs of the Human Services Department at DWRC.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I second.
Motion by Brown, second by Fleming. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Five C, discussion budget presentation summary.
All right. So, wanted to, I've historically done this, at a committee meeting following the budget presentations. You can go watch them if you'd like, but I want to do this so that if there's any follow-up questions you guys have, you can ask and we can kind of discuss it a little further. And again, you go to the next page. So I gave this presentation on July 8th down at the DWRC. And one of the big things that I've gotten the last couple of years, and I think there's a little confusion. So I put this slide up and then the next slide with it, is I've gotten more questions recently about us subsidizing the towns. And that's an inaccurate statement. The county does not subsidize the towns. We provide service for the state. So all the numbered highways, we provide our own services on county highways, which are lettered. And then the town roads, we do 14 townships within Rock County. And those are the named roads, right? Everybody pays for their service. So state pays on a time and material basis for all of their stuff. The towns pay time and material basis for their work as well. Okay, the only exception would be town work with winter maintenance. We charge them a flat rate, but we adjust that every so often as we look at a trend. So some years we come out ahead, some years they come out ahead, and it just depends on the winter. But it's very hard to budget on the town side with winter maintenance. So we do a flat rate. We have done that for years and years and years. So we make the adjustment to kind of balance it out over time. Go to the next page, and this kind of explains it. All of the work on the town highways, well, county highways, we do under our budgeted funds, overseen by me, and then the budget itself. State highways are under an annual agreement for services, oversights by the DOT with certain exceptions. And same thing with the towns. They're done under an annual contract, oversight by the towns. The exceptions to the state and the towns are if there is a down stop sign, we go immediately. We don't ask questions. We go do it because that's a liability. That's a safety issue. Same thing with winter maintenance. The expectations are we go out and plow. We take those phone calls so they're not getting called at 2 a.m. or things like that. So, and then with the towns, if there's anything else that they just expect us to do, sometimes some towns want us to just go do certain things. Trees down over the road, go move it. We don't need to get that call, take care of it because we're going to tell you to take care of it anyways. Right. So there are certain things, depending on the towns, they may have some criteria they just want us to do, but all of those services are paid for. Okay. And that's been just an odd question that I've gotten lately, and I don't know where that's coming from, but they pay for the services that we provide them. Next slide, please. Gives a little highlight here of what the crew is responsible for. Generally, people see us either mowing, occasionally they see us paving or seal coating, and they see us plow the roads in the winter. But there is a significant amount of work that we do above and beyond that. Everything from checking sections to crack filling, signing and traffic control paving, tree cutting, curb and gutter cleaning, culvert work, snow fence. We've been putting in a significant amount of snow fence to help us with drifting in the wintertime. The one thing that I missed on here is emergency response. I didn't put it back on here again. But you know, tornadoes, flooding, all that stuff, our guys jump in, our staff jumps in and gets after that as well. So just want to kind of touch on that to kind of show a bigger spectrum of what we're handling. The locations of service we provide, I think, I know Ron knows this, but the black locations are where we have staffed facilities. So we have Evansville shed up there. We've got an individual up there. We've got some in Orfordville, some up in Edgerton. Obviously the main shop here, we have the bulk of our staff, and then down at Chopere. The two facilities in red are ones where we have storage, salt storage, some equipment there. We use those during the storms as kind of a mid location to get refill with salt in the wintertime. We do store some other things there. The green lines are our 24-hour routes in the wintertime. We service those 24/7, 365. And then the white town blocks are the towns that we service. We provide service for. So gives you kind of a breakdown of what all happens on the roads themselves. Our proposed projects for 27 to 31. This is the listing that we've come up with. The one thing you'll notice, and I mentioned it in the meeting, the presentation, is that in 2027, the way that we're looking at the projects and the way that we're trying to utilize all the aid, the funding aid, right? So down there, you got CHI-D, CHI-S, those are all LRIP programs that we do through state aid. We have bill money that we have used in the past. There's nothing in there in this 5-year cycle. We have STP urban, and then we've got some other contributing factors there. Basically that County T project in green. There was a discussion with the city of Broadhead about making County T more of an urban corridor. We've done that in the past with the city of Janesville, where we would go through and do it to our standard. Anything above and beyond that, they contribute in on the local share. Okay, so we don't pay to expand something to a city street. They make that contribution. And that's what that other contributing funding would be. Now, if that doesn't happen, that project gets significantly cheaper. But then we don't get that other contribution either. All right. So just some definitions there. we don't have any funding cycles in 2027 aid cycles that we're going to utilize, primarily because if you look at County H and County M next year, 2028. Down below, you see 704,000, and then off to the right, you see 352 and 350. We're taking the money from that program and we're lumping it all into 1 year because those two projects are significantly bigger than what we're dealing with this next year proposed. So we wanted to utilize the funds towards those projects to try and keep the overall cost down. I guess I can leave it at that, but we've done a lot of homework on workload, staff resources, town work projections, state work projections, and all of that to try and come up with what we think is going to be a reasonable layout for the next 5 years. This is the struggle, right? These are projects that are in the list or in the queue, but they aren't even on the 5-year program yet. Okay, we haven't gotten them up that far. They are at pacer ratings of 6s, but those are going to be coming down in the next 5 years more than likely. As roads deteriorate, they drop in ratings, and we're going to be probably looking to get to those as soon as we can, but yet we've got a backlog here. We're doing everything we can to maintain them and keep them up so that we aren't getting into a lot of these. But if you go to the next slide, Amanda, this is what our pacer condition report was in 2019. So a 1 is a completely failed road, a 10 is a brand new road. And you can kind of see in 2019, we had a big bubble in the 4, 5s, and 6s that were working their ways down. Okay. In 2025 or 26, this is what it looks like. Okay, we've moved the 2s and most of the 3s and maybe a couple of the 4s up to the 10s, and then some of those have worked down to 8s and 9s. But what you're seeing is a big spike in the 6s and 5s. That's the maintenance we've been doing to hold them back, and they're holding, but we're only going to be able to do that for so long before they start to come down the pike. So that's the listing that you saw before, the ones that are on the back burner yet. That's what we're looking at. That's what I'm worried about, is that next batch coming down the road. All right. Next slide. I share this one. There's been comments about what does the public want? What do they want to see kind of generally in county services, right? And my comment in the presentation was, it depends, right? So if I'm up in Milton on the county system, if I'm in the town of Milton somewhere, my county highways are in good shape. I'm not worried about spending money on county highways because N and M, they're nice and new, they're pretty, they're good, they run fine. But if I'm over in Magnolia, I'm looking at it going, you guys got 2 miles of road that's nice in here, and I got 3 others that are in pretty rough shape. Plymouth would be the same thing. Rock is in the same boat. It depends on where you're at in the county on what a person's perspective might be. Okay. So I share this to kind of show the overall system and what it looks like as a whole, because that's what I have to think about. That's what this committee has to think about. We can't look at it just in sections. We have to look at the whole thing. Okay, next, budget projections. Okay, so these were the numbers that I shared then. Revenue sources, we were looking at approximately 19,483,000. The breakdown kind of shows where that money's coming from: county funds, state aid, state work, town work, and then other. A lot of the county funds are going to be sales tax, tax levy, borrowing if there is any, things like that. State aid is your general transportation aids, any of that aid funding for our projects, which we're not going to have any in 27. State work is that state contract, and then any potential other contracts they may throw at us. Town work is obviously the town contract work that we provide services for, and then other is generally other county departments. Let me look at my sheet here and make sure I cover all. Bunch of them, bridge aid, county bridge aid's in there, because that's a levy that gets administered. To the towns, permit fees, records and reports, motor pools in there, things like that. So those are services we provide and we get paid for. Okay. Expenses, administration, that covers all front office staff, superintendents are in that. That's 2.1 million. Operationally, that covers everything. That's our town work, that's our other work, that's state work, it's the county work, it's the whole kit and caboodle on the operational side. And then the other is gonna be some of the other county departments that we provide work for, motor pool and rail transit. So we have to pay a little bit towards the Wisconsin River Rail Transit Commission. Okay, so there's a little bit in there. Okay, next slide. So what does that mean? So our actual or our projected in 2026 was revenue about 19 million, a little over 19 million. Long-term debt was 1.8. That was the borrowing that was used for County J that we're going to be doing this fall. The total revenue then based on that was 21 million. Expenses were 24.7. Left us with a tax levy of about 3.6 million. Okay. For 2027, at the time, we were looking at 19.4. We were throwing out 2 million as a potential for borrowing because it was consistent-ish with last year, trying to keep similar. Would give us 21 million. And then our expenses were projected at that time at 25 million. Now, based on what we've done since then to make some adjustments to the budget, revenue and expenses, instead of getting a total revenue of 21 million as we had projected, we're looking at about 20,554,000. Okay, but our expenses have also gone down and we're looking at about 24,070,000. So what that does is our tax levy impact there is on that sheet's 3.8 million, but our new tax levy would be about 3.5. Okay, so it's we've lost a little revenue, but we've also had to adjust a lot of our expenses. We tried to trim it even further after the meeting. We worked with Kristen and Kim in our office, and Nick and I spent some time going through it with a fine-tooth comb again. We found a few other things. So that actually puts us at a position that based on 2026, we're coming up with a reduction of about 90,000. Okay. We really tried to tighten it up. We do that every year. But this projection was a little earlier. Last year we had our budget presentation the day the budget was due. So we had better information at that time. So this year's a little bit different. So that's where some of the discrepancies are coming from, is we just hadn't fully gotten through everything by the time we had to get the presentation out. So any questions on any of that? Threw a lot at you, but I tried to go as quick as I could, Ron. My presentation was much longer.
That was very thorough. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you make it. Your budget presentations are pretty straightforward and easy to understand.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, did you guys have any questions? All right, we'll move on. 5D discussion, brine water line install.
Okay. This is, so facilities. We tried to, I missed getting this on the last agenda packet, so I wanted to bring it back for discussion so you guys are aware. Brent and Brent and his crew and myself and Nick and some of our crew have been working on trying to figure out the best way to increase our brine capacity ability, making capacity. We had run off of a 3/4 inch, 1 inch line to run our brine maker. Our brine maker can run full capacity at a 2-3 inch line, 3 inch, 2 inch minimum. And we've been trying to do it with a 1. So what would happen is we had a pump system with a 6,500 gallon tank. We'd fill that with water. That'd sit overnight, fill up, and then in the morning we could run the pump system and create the brine that we need for the winter maintenance. We ran into some storms last year where we were falling behind, and we were basically going to have to either use rock salt, which is at about $100 a ton. It's also a little harder on the environment. Salt brine, we run at 23.3%, ideally concentrated rate with water mixture, right? So we were running behind, we weren't able to keep up. Our options were to run the rock salt, or we'd run loads from Jefferson. Jefferson's got a full capacity maker. We can buy it from them, but the hauling and the expense is kind of extra, right? So with that, what we ended up doing is we got a fire hose that we ran from the wash bay all along the floor, and that increased our capacity significantly. It was 1.5 inch fire hose, I believe. So we worked with Brent, and we came up with an idea to run a water line from our main over through the shop and get it back to the brine maker so that we can run that thing at a much higher capacity. Okay, it's significantly cheaper for us to run brine when we can. Doesn't work in every storm. Sometimes we have to run rock salt, but the more brine we can use, the better it is on our budget and the better it is on the environment. So we're trying to utilize as much as we can. I think the last report was 2025 from the DOT, and on their system, we use somewhere in the neighborhood of 360,000 gallons of brine versus that much salt would have been significant. So what they were doing is Brent went and got put an RFQ out. He got some quotes in, had 3 different quotes to run that water line. Helm service was the lowest at $49,410. Obviously keeping in mind that we aren't running, just standard pipe. We got to run some, stainless steel type material, things like that, so it doesn't corrode, because our whole building's in just a salt environment, right? So we have to be cognizant of that. I don't want to put good money after bad by putting something chintzy up, right? So that's what's going on there. The committee, the General Services Committee authorized this because the project is being administered by facilities, but it's coming out of our budget.
Right.
So it's out of our brine budget, right? We had some savings there with that so far this year, and we're projecting that we can be in good shape this winter. If Brent and his crew can get this installed. So that's why we wanted to bring it to this committee, is because it's coming out of our budget. But he's administering it, so their contract authority, it's a little bit of a different process. So, but are there any questions?
Thank you. Moving on, 5E, discussion FEMA update.
So Nick is our FEMA guru right now, and he begrudgingly took that on. And it has been quite the adventure. I think that first week Nick was off. I was sitting in a lot of FEMA meetings, the kickoff meetings with the towns and our county kickoff. And then he came back and we had a number of meetings that Nick and I had about 2 days before I went on vacation, and we just hammered on FEMA stuff. They had a lot of questions. Nick has gone through a significant effort he's been buried in this room here for what, 6 days now? Just going through and chugging through and making sure all the numbers are in the right pots. You can see the board there, he's got all his notes and or part of his notes. So I'm gonna let him explain kind of what's going on and how this has been going, because he's living it more than I am at this point, so.
Yeah, so up on the screen there, just kind of a little flow chart of how this FEMA process is kind of flowing. I'm just gonna give you an update where we're at. So this is all in response to that April 17th. The actual dates that were approved was April 13th to the 23rd. That flooding and tornado event, where we had significant flooding, damage to roads, damage to infrastructure, debris removal, stuff like that. So on that flow chart, the disaster event started. A formal request was done by the governor to FEMA, to the federal White House, requesting assistance. That was done on June 30th. And then a official declaration was approved for Wisconsin, which included Rock County. So with that, there was an applicant briefing with FEMA representatives here in Rock County at the Town of Rock Town Hall. We attended that on July 15th. And it was kind of a briefing of how this process was going to start, some information on different categories, what expenses were eligible, things like that. But each municipality, either a township, city, county, had to put in a request for public assistance by July 30th in order to be eligible for any FEMA reimbursement funds. So that was kind of the next step in the process. From there, once your submission was in by the 30th, then a recovery scoping meeting was scheduled with FEMA representatives. And we're working with 10 different townships plus the county to attend those meetings and then get an overall scoping of the damage that was done and the repairs that needed to be made or have already been made. So between Dewey, myself, Kevin Mornett in emergency management, we've attended all of these meetings, 10 of the townships, our own county one, to get more information from FEMA on what they're looking for as far as documentation, really. So they're looking for different documentation on what damage occurred, quantities, when it occurred, what the labor costs were, what the material costs were, all of those types of things. So from those initial meetings, we've had follow-up meetings, basically a second follow-up meeting with each of those 10 towns. The county hasn't had a second one yet, but this coming Thursday, the 27th, will be our next follow-up meeting with FEMA to go over a bunch of the documentation that we've been working on getting organized. So with FEMA, they have different categories of work, and all of the work that we did, we need to kind of split into those categories for them to review and deem eligible or not. So that's kind of the data crunch that we've been doing and working on. And this Thursday, we're going to go over all those 10 towns in our county, expenses and documentation, and give them kind of an update. They're looking to move this process along pretty quickly. They're hoping by early to mid-September that they can get all of the documentation I'm talking about and get kind of projects formulated and then reviewed and approved. So it's kind of a tight timeline, but we're going through it. They've been pretty good to work with. And basically we're splitting through all that information currently, and we'll continue on that process. So right now on that flow chart, we're in the project formulation phase. In mid-September, where we should be working towards that review and approval, and then continue on the process. I can go into details some more on the categories. There's kind of 3 main categories that FEMA uses for eligibility. The first one's category A, and that's debris clearance. That's usually debris, trees down in the road, silt, corn stalks in the ditch, stuff like that. Their second category is category B, and that's emergency response. So that's really the initial response, high water signs, barricades, sandbagging, clearing trees off the road just to open them up. So that's another category. And then their third main categories, category C, which is roads and bridges, so any damage done to the roads, shoulders, culverts, bridges, stuff like that. Their minimum threshold in each of those categories is $4,100. So in order to be eligible, you have to hit that minimum threshold per category. Some of the townships, maybe didn't have enough expenses in one category or the other, so sorting through all of those expenses right now, and getting them outlined per category to see which ones they'd be eligible for or not. The other caveat with eligibility is, the road classification. We've kind of been working through that process with FEMA. And the classification of roadway can make the project eligible or not. And basically, if it's a larger classification, like a major collector, it can be eligible for federal aid monies. So through this program, it's not eligible for FEMA monies. So there's some documented maps showing which roads are classified as major collectors and above, and those ones are not eligible for this FEMA funding. So that's a process we've been working through. We've also talked to the state a little bit about some alternative funding sources for those roadways that aren't eligible, since they're not eligible and they still had damage, to see if there's any other options. And a couple of our county highways we've asked, and then some of the township ones too. Mainly that Rockport Road Bridge is the big one for the towns. That is classified as a major collector. So we're working through that to try and get funding for the towns of Rock and Janesville.
That's part of what that delay is that we were trying to get this done and get the bridge open back up. Well, then we find out that you can't because it doesn't fit their category. Now we have to go through a different process to try and get funding for it. So it's slowing things down. And one of the things that distinction, and Nick's kind of touched on it here, is a major collector, right? So FEMA, Fed Aid look at major collectors. So you have major collector and minor collector. The state of Wisconsin does not differentiate. We're one of the states that doesn't differentiate between a major and a minor collector. We just have collectors. So then the feds automatically assume they are major collectors, even though Rockport would be more than likely a minor collector and then eligible. It's not, because of the way the state has categorized or chosen to categorize that piece of the thing. What that does though, is it makes it eligible for a federal aid program. So there's a trade-off, right? In this case, it hurts us, but overall it would be probably a better thing for all of the collector roads in the state. So it just happens that one's one that's getting thing done.
The reimbursement amount is generally, there's some exceptions, but generally is 75% reimbursement through the feds, and then another 12.5% from the state of Wisconsin. So any of those projects that are deemed eligible would be eligible for that reimbursement cost, as long as all the documentation is shown, timekeeping records and all that stuff. So we're working through with multiple different FEMA kind of project managers for each of the towns in the county. Currently, like I said, our next update meeting is this Thursday, and we're going to keep working with them throughout the next couple of weeks to get these projects kind of finalized and some actual monies kind of more solidified.
Also would like to add, Nick and our accounting staff, we had done a bunch with WDF. We had, what storms were those?
That was the Town of Rock tornado. Was
The tornado. Okay. And so we had made some adjustments to the accounting to try and get that all set up for WDF reports, things like that. Well, FEMA's similar, but they're different. And there's a different animal with FEMA. So now we're actually looking at our accounting setup to set it up differently yet, so that it'll cover FEMA and WDF, so that when we get into these events, we're able to dump everything into an account and have it split to hit the WDF stuff. But because FEMA has different criteria, that's what this effort is that Nick's been primarily going through to split all this stuff out. Now we're going, and this is our first crack at FEMA. We haven't had to deal with FEMA before. So we're making the adjustment on the accounting end to try and minimize, so we aren't having to do this level of effort if we ever get into a situation like it again. So it's a learning curve, and we're trying to make adjustments for the future, but it is cumbersome
process,
Yeah, right.
And I know Kevin's trying to get it so that the townships are set up for disaster. Now that we've had a couple of experiences here that if they just have one person that everybody can go to and keep track of everything, document it, all that, how much easier it is to get to this point.
Yeah.
So,
Kevin's done really, really well. His guidance, I mean, there's certain things that we're doing or we have done because of what he's kind of put out there for us. And then him being I mean, he's been diligent to be at every one of these meetings, and that helps the dialogue. It helps, he's a good intermediary because he's understanding a lot of our stuff because we talk to him a lot and work with him. He understands that side of it. And so some of the roadblocks maybe between us and FEMA, he's able to bridge that. So it's making the conversations go much smoother, you know, and that helps immensely.
well, thank you, Nick. And thank you for all your hard work. I've heard good things back from the townships.
Oh, good. Oh, it's been, this whole department has been helpful because it's a large group. I mean, there's all of the guys who did the work, he's coordinating with them and.
No, it's been a monumental task. Okay. Did you guys have anything else you wanted?
I just thought it was interesting that when FEMA came out, that Rock County was one of the counties that was gonna receive benefits right away. So, because of your preparation of collecting all the information ahead of time and having all that. That was very good.
Okay, 6A. Review of payments, July 2026. Anybody have any questions? Any payments?
I will say that there are a number of these that have the last item listed, so that the dollars per ton look skewed. There's a lot more tonnage there, so you can't just straight divide out the rates. On page 4 of the thing, you'll see a Piccadilly sub. We did not get subs. It's a subdivision named Piccadilly. It just looks a little funny on there.
That is just because we have no interest in the characters.
Yeah.
Well, I can't find it, but I see you got $35,000 discount from Brown Oil for the payment.
Yeah, that's.
I know that's not right, but it's just,
The bottom line doesn't share the full story,
oh, I know.
you know,
Yeah, 10-day payment discount.
you know. We had a number of bigger things here this round because we did a lot of the town paving. So you'll see a lot of, I think La Prairie had 200 and some thousand, and there's another town in here had quite a bit of paving work. So those are some of the bigger ticket items. A lot of the bridge inspections hit this cycle too.
All right, there's no other questions. Move on to next meeting date and time. Parks meeting will be Tuesday, September 8th, 2026 at 7:30 AM in Public Works. Highway meeting will be Tuesday, September 22nd, 2026 at 7:30 AM here at Public Works. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Okay, so move.
Motion by Brown, seconded by Fleming. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, motion passes. Thank you, everyone. 8:14.